Hello, this is Steve from Beaute's Leatherworks, and today's project is this cool pair of Crockett Jones shoes. Now, it's seen its better days, and I think throughout the years it's been repaired a couple of times, and last time it was repaired, not very well, unfortunately. It looked like somebody just slapped a piece of leather on top of the sole, original sole, and then trimmed the edges. But they trimmed the edges so much that you can see the welt stitches coming loose from the edge, and the uppers are all scratched up. Overall, it's not a bad, solid shoe. The customer who sent this in wanted the SpadeSole. Now, he sent me a picture of it, of how he wanted it done, which was a job that I'd done previously. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna tear it all apart and install a new welt, new shank, fiddle waist, blind stitch, French tips if I'm not mistaken, combination heels, and just kind of clean the uppers and recolor them a little bit and bring them back to what they used to look like. All right, let's get started. Now, I took one shoe apart already. I just had to see what I was dealing with, and that's what it looks like. Structurally, it's in pretty good shape still. Okay. The shank was broken, 3 different pieces. It was a wood shank. We're gonna put a metal shank in there. I've cleaned the uppers here. Big difference. When it gets done, it'll look much better, obviously. There's a lot of so-called cobblers out there who really either should get educated on how things are supposed to get done or not do it at all. It's something that, I don't know. There's a lot of common sense in this business, you know? Sometimes people don't use it, or they don't have it, I don't know. This is the sole that was put on top of the original sole. Oh no, you just don't do jobs like this, you know? You shouldn't do jobs like this. There was another half sole done. See that line right there? Where'd it go? Right there? So this was half soled, and then another sole put on top of the half sole. It's not too late. We can bring these back. It'll be an incredible transformation. All right, you don't want to see all this boring stuff. All right, let's continue. Now, this is just a matter of taking your time, cleaning the surface, turning the rag over to a clean spot, because you don't want to rub the dirt and the polish and the buildup back into the pores of the leather. We're using some deglazing fluid, almost like an acetone, to strip all this crud off here. And what we're going to do, we're going to let this dry for a bit and then put a thin base coat of some acrylic mahogany color. And then we'll let that dry. And then we'll put some Fiebings dye, creams, polishes, and kind of build up that patina that was on there before. I mean, you can see, you know, how much dirt that's there. for that. So we'll continue that until we get that surface clean. All right, let's continue. Now this is a 270-degree welt design, which starts from about the ankle bone here, goes to the toe, and comes back to the other side of the ankle bone. It's not a 360 where 360 goes all the way around the heel here, okay? Now, once I took it apart, I noticed that there were some issues on the gemming here. Basically, it was kind of damaged a little bit. This piece of gemming is glued onto the footbed, and then the uppers and the welt all get stitched on, okay? When there's nothing holding the uppers onto the footbed with the torn gemming, we've got to either replace the whole gemming or repair it, okay? In this case, we're going to put a small piece of canvas there and repair that section, basically. This way you'll have a nice foundation to stitch a new welt onto. Well, the rest of the gemming is in pretty good shape, so there's no need for that, the full replacement. And that's it. She's ready to go. All right, let's continue. So some of these areas, it's got a little bit of scuff at the toe. While we have the welt off and have a nice access to that area, we're going to sand those down before we put any type of dye on there, just to smooth it out a little bit. This is a 400, I think 400 grit sandpaper. You're not really doing any damage to the leather. You're just kind of taking the high spots down to smooth to make it look better. If it's deeper scratches, then you might have to sand it a little bit more. And that's it. It'd be a shame to dye the uppers when we have that defect there. Might as well take care of that while you can. Once you dye that, I think that'll be covered up pretty good. All right, let's continue. Now you see the difference between these two, right? I put a little bit of acrylic dye on this one, very light color, just to kind of even out the tone. I've got a scratch right there. Let's see if we can get rid of that for him. We're going to do the same thing with this one. Now, what kind of acrylic dyes do I use? This is called Leather Refinish. Okay. All right, let's continue. Now, acrylic dyes are kind of tricky, right? You can't just cake it on there, okay? Because most of the time, acrylic dyes kind of sit on the surface of the leather and doesn't really absorb into the pores of the leather. Now, what you can do instead of caking it on there, just give it a light coat to act as a base coat. I don't really recommend caking it on there. It doesn't look good when you do that. Just a little bit will go a long ways. Now once this gets nice and dry, we'll come back and tint it with a little bit of Fiebing dye to a darker shade, and then put in our conditioners and creams towards the end. I like doing it at this stage here because I've got the welt off and I can get into the really nooks and crannies of the uppers there. With the welt being on there, you can't really get to those deep areas. So I'll prep it. Prep it meaning basically just put in a light coat of dye and some conditioners around these areas here, and then I'll come back at the end when everything is finished and put the final touches on there. Now if you see that you applied too much dye, simply just get a little bit of water. And you can remove some of that excess dye when it's too much. The cool thing about this acrylic is that when it's wet, you can clean it up with water. But when it dries, water won't touch it. All right, so we'll let that sit for a little while. All right, let's continue. Now, I know some of you guys are wondering, what the hell is Steve talking about? A spade sole. Sole's a sole, right? No. So let me show you one. Back in the 20s, I'm guessing it was 20s. I don't know what year it kind of became famous, but back in the 20s it was pretty popular. The shoe had a really nice slim shank, and towards this part it would kind of protrude out like that, and then come to a narrow toe like that, if I can speak, narrow toe like that. Now, there are different kinds of spade soles. This is one style right here. Let me show you a remake, a 90s version of a spade sole. Okay, this is Kolhan, believe it or not. This was one of my competition shoes that I entered in the Netherlands, which I won gold. The score wasn't that high, but nevertheless it was gold. So you see that shape right there? This is the 90s version. Now, whenever we put a welt on it, this is a regular welt that we normally use on when we're re-welting shoes. It's a narrow piece of leather. Okay, got a little groove in the back for the stitches to go into. But with a spade sole, we have to make that right there a little bit wider. We can't use that, so what we're going to do, I'm going to get a piece of leather, okay, and we're going to cut a piece of the shape that we need. Now, I know this is a lot wider. I'll trim this. So we taper the edge down a little bit, we groove the channel right there, and this is the shape of basically the shoe, like that. Okay, once this gets stitched on, we'll fill in the shank, the cork, the heel rand in the back, put the sole on, then I can trim it to exactly the same shape. It's the exact shape that I want. That's the spade sole creation. Oh, this shoe, by the way, this is a Stetson. This is an alligator. I don't know how old these are. These are maybe from the 40s, right? This is seen, it's a big mess. Somebody already butchered this up there. But I've got plans for this, okay? It's a Stetson shoe. I know some of you are gonna ask, hey man, what kind of shoe was that fucking looking pointy through alligator kind of shoe? It's a Stetson. I don't know, I guess it's like a Stetson hat company? I'd have to look into this. All right, let's continue. So at times like this, at 6 o'clock, and the shop is nice and quiet. You know, this is my happy place. Even though lately, you know, there's been some tough times that we go through in life that tests us, you know? And I think that quiet times like this, you can kind of have loud thoughts. That makes sense to you guys. Life must go on. I think that's the saddest part, to me anyway, like about somebody passing away, right? Like, I remember when my dad passed away. That was like 30 years ago. And everything, like, when the funeral was over, everything was almost, you know, back to normal. And it seemed like everybody forgets and they go on with their life. That was the toughest part for me. When you lose somebody like that, and it seems like everybody else around you just kind of goes on with their life, and it becomes normal again. I never liked that fact, you know, that people get on with their life, and I know it's normal. I know we all got to get on with our life. I know that. That's the strangest thing about, to me anyway, that when that happens, everybody just comes to the funeral, pays their respect, and then a week goes by, then it's done. It's forgotten almost. Well, you know, we don't forget. Others may forget because they're so busy with their life, but the close ones don't forget. That's why I like to come here early and get things done. It's kind of just my happy place. Okay, let's get back to the shoe. So we're stitching the welt on. That's what we're doing. I think I'm back to normal now. Even though I have some thoughts still in my head, I gotta get to work and get things done. Had a good break. Went saw a good customer over there. Although I had a couple of people call me saying, "Hey man, how come you didn't come visit me when you were here?" Oh my God, believe me, I wish I could have. Maybe that's what I need to do now, right? Like travel somewhere and find some customers. Go visit them and have some coffee. Oh, that'd be a new segment, right? But I had a lot of people in California that I could have gone and visit. I was sitting at the car auction. We went to a car auction one day. Somebody tapped on my shoulder, said, "Beaute?" I go, "Holy shit, somebody recognized me here? Oh my God." And it was a customer. I guess it was a viewer or a customer. I'm not sure. It was like, it happened so quick. And he gave his condolences to I was passing my brother, and he just shook my hand, or I shook his hand, whatever, and then he said bye. I was like, what just happened? My wife was sitting next to me. She's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "I don't know." You know? So it's kind of cool that this video gets out everywhere. Well, a lot of places, not everywhere. All right, this is the last stitch here. Let's put a couple of knots. Man, I cut this thread a little too long. Okay, a little hammer time. That's a big shoe, man. But you get the idea, right? Once we start shaping it up, man, it's gonna look really nice. This is gonna look nice, very nice shoe. I like it. All right, let's continue. Y'all know what time it is. It's hammer time. I should say we prepped the shoe. See that shape right there? That's going to give us that fiddle waist shape. Cork the front, heel ran the welt. I trimmed the welt a little bit to give it some sort of a shape. Now this is a big foot, right? This is an 11.5. And with the new heel ran and new welt, almost too big for this pre-cut JR sole. The welt is going to hang over just a little, but don't forget we still have to trim. We still have to trim the welt, so we should have plenty of room for that. Let's get these sides here bent down. It should be all right. Very nice, very nice. All right, let's continue. That's what we call blind stitch, kids. You can't see it. Yes, I did put some glue here so we can secure that back on the sole. Now if you notice, I cut the leather pretty thick. Now most of the time when people do blind stitch like this, they cut it very thin. Well, some manufacturers do anyway. And when the customer wears it a couple times, that little thin flap kind of peels up a little bit, and you can still see the stitches. It's nothing structural. It's just that thin leather usually will wear down first, and then the stitches get exposed. With the way I do it here, the leather is a little bit thicker. It'll be a while before that wears down for you to see a stitch. But it's harder to peel it up when it's heavy like that. When it's thick like that, I should say. What we're going to do, we're going to press the edges again. Make sure there's no air bubbles. Just like that. That's what we call a spade sole. Let's get in there, it's not done yet. Alright, let's continue. It helps if I turn it on. I cracked myself up. All right, welcome back. We are done with another project. I think it turned out pretty good. From what we started with to what we have now, it's an awesome shoe. I mean, it was an awesome shoe to begin with. Just needed a little bit TLC, right? That's what you call a spade sole. Line stitch fiddle waist here. Combination heels. Some brass tacks all the way around. Uppers got cleaned and added a little bit of color. Conditioned, polished them up. I think they turned out very nice. So I think the customer will be very happy. All right, so this job cost $640. You know, I give prices out to my jobs because a lot of people want to know what it costs to do this type of work. And usually when I give it out, that's the reason why I give it out. But there's always people who get triggered when I give prices out. I'm like, why are you getting triggered? If me giving prices out triggers you, bothers you, you got bigger issues to worry about than just me giving the prices out. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really appreciate it. I'm slowly getting into the rhythm of things. My head is still a little bit, you know, a little foggy, but I'm getting there slowly but surely. And I'll promise to come back 100%. If you guys have any questions, email me, bedos@yahoo.com, bedos@yahoo.com. Now I've got a bunch of emails I got to answer still, so be patient. I will get to it sooner or later, okay? All right, thank you for joining me again. Leave your comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, negative, positive, I'll take it all. All right, we'll see you guys again in the next project. Take care.